You know that friend who can't sit still during meetings but somehow comes up with the most brilliant ideas? Or that entrepreneur who seems scattered but builds million-dollar companies? Here's what's fascinating. Many of them have ADHD, and what we've been seeing as purely a challenge might also come with unexpected advantages. Anthropologist Dr. Peter Jensen's work suggests that ADHD like traits may have been adaptive in hunter gatherer societies, where hypervigilance and quick decision making were survival skills. So, what if there's more to ADHD than we've been told? Today, we're cracking the ADHD code, 9 legitimate mental superpowers that most people completely misunderstand. And I'm not talking about feel good spins on difficult symptoms. We're exploring real neurological advantages backed by research from Harvard, Stanford, and Johns Hopkins. Number 7 is the one that even ADHD researchers got wrong for decades. And it's going to flip your entire perspective. So, whether you have ADHD, know someone who does, or you're just curious about how different brains actually work, buckle up. You're about to discover why having an ADHD brain might come with some serious evolutionary advantages. Let's start with hyperfocus, Makir, and this is where the science gets fascinating. While everyone thinks ADHD means you can't concentrate on anything, people with ADHD can actually achieve these remarkably intense states of laser-like focus. Dr. Russell Barkley, one of the world's leading ADHD researchers, has documented that when people with ADHD are deeply engaged in something that captivates them, they can maintain extraordinary concentration for extended periods, often completely losing track of time and their surroundings. You know that feeling when you're working on something fascinating and suddenly 6 hours have vanished? Your phone buzzed dozens of times, people walked past your desk, someone probably even called your name, but you were so locked in that none of it registered. That's hyperfocus, and it's like having a supercomputer mode for your brain. Many successful entrepreneurs describe exactly this ability, working extremely long days without breaking concentration. Research shows that during these states, people with ADHD demonstrate sustained attention abilities that can actually exceed typical performance levels. But wait until you hear about the idea machine superpower. Here's something researchers call divergent thinking, but I like to call it the idea factory on steroids. Studies have found that people with ADHD often show enhanced performance on creativity measures compared to their neurotypical peers, particularly when it comes to generating novel and original ideas. A 2011 study by Dr. Holly White at the University of Memphis tested 60 college students and found that those with ADHD generated significantly more creative uses for everyday objects compared to their peers. But it's not just quantity, it's quality. People with ADHD consistently come up with more original, unexpected solutions to problems. Picture this. While everyone else is following the logical path from A to B, the ADHD brain is making connections between A and Q, then somehow landing on a solution that's both brilliant and completely out of left field. Richard Branson, who has ADHD, credits this exact thinking pattern for Virgin's success. He says his brain naturally sees opportunities and connections that others miss entirely. This isn't learned behavior. It's how ADHD brains are literally wired from birth. Now here's where things get counterintuitive because that impulsive reputation, it's hiding something incredible. People with ADHD are actually exceptional at rapid decision making under uncertainty. Now, I know what you're thinking, but aren't people with ADHD impulsive and bad at judging situations? That's exactly the misconception we need to shatter. Research led by Dr. Ilyan Ivanov at Mount Sinai found that while people with ADHD do act more quickly, they show enhanced sensitivity to reward feedback in decision making tasks. Here's how it works. Imagine you're at a startup pitch meeting and someone presents a completely unconventional business idea. While neurotypical brains get stuck analyzing past data and conventional wisdom, the ADHD brain rapidly processes multiple scenarios and potential outcomes. They're not being reckless. They're making split-second calculations when information is limited. Michael Phelps, who has ADHD, used this exact ability in swimming. His coach said Michael could instantly assess race conditions and competitor strategies in real-time situations where overthinking would be fatal. The result? 28 Olympic medals. Brain imaging shows that people with ADHD have heightened activity in their anterior cingulate cortex during decision-making, which is literally the brain's rapid response calculation center. But this next one might be the most misunderstood superpower of all. Let's talk about emotional intensity. And this is where ADHD becomes a genuine superpower in relationships and leadership. People with ADHD don't just feel emotions, they experience them in full HD with surround sound. A 2021 study from Harvard Medical School found that this emotional intensity directly correlates with higher levels of empathy and emotional intelligence. Think about the most charismatic leader you know, the friend who always knows exactly what you're feeling, or that teacher who could connect with every single student. Chances are they have ADHD traits. When you feel emotions more intensely, you become incredibly attuned to emotions in others. You can read micro expressions, pick up on subtle voice changes, and sense when something's off before anyone else notices. Simone Biles, who has ADHD, talks about how this emotional intensity helps her connect with young athletes and understand exactly what they're going through. This isn't just touchy-feely stuff. Research shows that teams led by people with high emotional intensity perform 25% better than those led by emotionally flat leaders. The ADHD brain's emotional intensity becomes a strategic advantage in building trust, motivating others, and creating psychological safety. Now, this next one sounds completely impossible, but the science is rock solid. People with ADHD are actually better at multitasking than people without it. I know, and every productivity expert tells us multitasking is a myth. But Dr. Adam Gazzaley from UC San Francisco discovered something remarkable. While neurotypical brains suffer when switching between tasks, ADHD brains actually thrive on it. Picture this scenario: you're answering emails while listening to a podcast, taking notes on a separate project, and monitoring a group chat, and somehow you're performing better on all four tasks than if you tried to do them one at a time. That's because ADHD brains have what researchers call cognitive flexibility on steroids. A 2020 study found that people with ADHD can switch between different types of thinking: analytical, creative, logical, intuitive, up to 40% faster than neurotypical individuals. Entrepreneurs with ADHD consistently report that their best business insights come when they're juggling multiple projects simultaneously. Brain scans show that when people with ADHD multitask, they actually have increased connectivity between different brain regions, creating what scientists call enhanced neural networking. It's like having a brain with built-in Wi-Fi while everyone else is using dial-up. But this next superpower might explain why humans survived as a species. Let's explore something called novelty seeking, which is basically the ADHD brain's addiction to new experiences, and it turns out this might be humanity's secret weapon for adaptation and innovation. Dr. Robert Cloninger's research at Washington University found that people with ADHD have significantly higher levels of novelty-seeking behavior, which directly correlates with entrepreneurial success and breakthrough discoveries. Here's what this looks like in real life. While most people stick to familiar routines and proven methods, people with ADHD are constantly exploring new approaches, questioning established systems, and experimenting with different solutions. They get bored with the way things have always been done and naturally push boundaries. This isn't just restlessness, it's evolutionary intelligence. Many successful innovators throughout history displayed traits now associated with ADHD, constantly questioning conventional thinking and refusing to accept established limitations. A 2023 study from MIT found that teams with high novelty-seeking members generated 60% more breakthrough innovations than teams without them. The ADHD brain's constant hunger for new experiences isn't a bug. It's a feature that drives human progress forward. Now get ready for number 7, because this completely flips the script. Here's the big one that even ADHD experts got completely wrong. People with ADHD have superior pattern recognition abilities, especially for detecting anomalies and inconsistencies that others miss. This isn't about being detail-oriented in the traditional sense. It's about seeing the bigger picture and spotting what doesn't belong. Multiple studies from researchers like Dr. Michelle Mowry have found that people with ADHD consistently outperform neurotypical peers in identifying patterns within complex information. Think about this. You walk into a room and immediately sense that something's off even though you can't pinpoint what it is. Or you're looking at a spreadsheet and instantly spot an error that 3 other people missed. That's your ADHD pattern recognition system at work. Megan Liu, a data scientist who discovered her ADHD at 28, describes it perfectly. The hypervigilance that makes me anxious in social settings helps me spot anomalies in data that everyone else misses. This ability makes people with ADHD incredibly valuable in fields like cybersecurity, quality control, fraud detection, and scientific research. Brain imaging shows that people with ADHD have enhanced connectivity between their visual cortex and pattern recognition centers from birth. They're literally seeing things that other brains filter out as unimportant. And speaking of things that seem like weaknesses but are actually strengths, let's talk about resilience, and this is where the ADHD experience becomes a genuine superpower. Living with ADHD means constantly adapting to a world that wasn't designed for your brain, and that builds what researchers call adaptive resilience. Dr. Michelle Mowry's research found that adults with ADHD score significantly higher on resilience measures than their neurotypical peers. Here's what this looks like. When you've spent your whole life figuring out creative workarounds for executive function challenges, developing systems to manage distractibility, and bouncing back from misunderstandings about your behavior, you become incredibly good at handling unexpected challenges. You develop what psychologists call cognitive flexibility, the ability to adapt your thinking and behavior when circumstances change. People with ADHD often describe feeling like they've been training for crisis management their entire lives. When the pandemic hit and everyone had to suddenly work from home, manage disrupted routines, and adapt to constant uncertainty, many people with ADHD actually thrived because they'd been developing these exact skills for years. Longitudinal studies show that adults with ADHD who embrace their condition actually report higher life satisfaction and achievement than the general population by their 40s and 50s. But this final superpower might be the most important one of all. Finally, let's talk about what might be the ultimate ADHD superpower: the ability to think in systems and see connections that others miss. This isn't just about being creative, it's about understanding how complex systems interact and influence each other. Dr. Russell Barkley's latest research suggests that ADHD brains are naturally wired for what he calls systems thinking. Picture this: while most people see individual problems that need individual solutions, people with ADHD naturally see how everything connects. They understand that changing one element in a system will ripple through and affect everything else. This makes them incredibly valuable in fields like business strategy, urban planning, environmental science, and technology design. Richard Branson talks about how his ADHD helps him see connections between seemingly unrelated industries, which is how Virgin expanded from music to airlines to space travel. The ADHD brain doesn't just think outside the box. It questions why the box exists in the first place and imagines entirely new ways of organizing reality. A 2023 study from Cambridge found that people with ADHD consistently outperform others on complex problem-solving tasks that require understanding multiple interconnected variables. They're not just thinking differently, they're thinking more completely. So there you have it, 9 genuine superpowers hiding inside what we've been calling a disorder. From hyperfocus that rivals any computer to pattern recognition that spots what others miss. From emotional intelligence that builds unshakable connections to systems thinking that reimagines entire industries. The ADHD brain isn't broken. It's evolved for a world that desperately needs innovation, adaptation, and creative problem solving. If you resonated with number 7 about pattern recognition, you're definitely going to want to check out our upcoming video on the hidden genius of neurodivergent thinking, why different brains are humanity's secret weapon. We're exploring how conditions like ADHD, autism, and dyslexia might actually be evolution's way of ensuring our species can handle whatever challenges come next. Most people don't realize that understanding these superpowers isn't about dismissing the real challenges that come with ADHD. It's about recognizing that having a different brain might be exactly what this world needs. So whether you're team ADHD or just fascinated by how incredible the human brain can be, hit that subscribe button because we're just getting started exploring the amazing world of neurodiversity.